This video that I'll be recording will be my presentation on what I view Octonions to be, so the meaning of Octonions from my perspective. Most of this work will be based off my third book, Quasi-Dimensionality, an Accidental Blueprint of the Infinite Improbability Field, and my second book, Metaversal Decipherment, The Art of Meaning Mechanics. I don't have that book on me right now, but both links to both of these books will be in the description below. Or if you want to look at my other videos, they'll help explain the meaning of this presentation. The reason that mathematicians are prone to not understanding what Octonions truly are, or how they work, is because the way to go from the development of two-dimensional planes to three-dimensional objects or constructs is equally misunderstood, given that a three-dimensional object will inform from having many planes stacked on top of each other, due to planes being devoid of any depth to them, which means that an infinite amount of planes would not lead to the formation of an object with depth if the amount of depth is zero, for it's akin to multiplying 0 by infinity and expecting to get an object to get anything more than 0. But this is just one example of the problem, with another being that an infinite amount of dots wouldn't make a line, or at least on their own it wouldn't, if each dot will always be separated from each other to some extent, meaning that a zooming out from the source would have to happen in order for a bunch of dots to become a line, or for a bunch of lines to become a curvature. That the problem has more to do with the existential gap which is present between the discrete and the continuous. After all, it's not about getting people or even artificial intelligences to learn how things work, because there is a singular method to do so which is absolute. And instead is about realizing that entities capable of learning can only mimic the methods that they are taught, as in the techniques used to get from one point to another, which means that it's not the method that was used to get there which matters. It's that the method was successful in getting the entity in the process of learning to see how it would be done, thereby suggesting that the method is nothing more than a still frame of reality which captures the information necessary for the entity to copy the details of that frame of reference, which is being used for their learning process, so as to show that the frame can contain anything in it, and the entity in a state of learning will make it work for themselves. So if I were to put it another way, I would say that the entity who is learning how something works, such as how two-dimensional planes can become three-dimensional, is doing so by taking everything in that they are learning about this process as a whole, as if the three-dimensional object were a single frame or a unit of information bound to be utilized for a learning model of some kind, since learning is entirely about taking things as they are and using the materials we are given to help instruct us on what it is that we can do with said contents, that numbers are just a byproduct of an elaborate process of reducing a myriad of concepts into individualized units of information presented as symbols, as these symbols will serve as shorthand for various entities or systems to take these symbols and put them together with other symbols to form complex arrangements rooted in arbitrarily motivated placements, which will eventually become the standard. Because of the proven track record that they'll have in being able to even make these complex structures. Therefore, the Octonion is the number which best shows evidence in it being ineffective to reduce the innumerable amount of factors involved with making any three-dimensional object or space into what it is, to that of a number, which would be a single unit of information, without realizing that the number meant to represent the entirety of a three-dimensional object or space can only do so if the three-dimensional object or space is free to function like an entity that is alive. Where leaps in logic can take place, which is the antithesis of mathematics, even if the key to understanding Octonions is dependent on there being an intuitive approach to the utilization of numbers, similarly to a chef who doesn't rely on a recipe to cook a meal, if they even use it at all, or musician who plays a song, not by reading the music, but from feeling it.